Now, I want to use a case study now, which is going to help us understand uh, when we have an idea or when we're delivering a service, how do we manage that service at the program level? Let's say that paper wants to offer you a job now as a scrum master, right? Or let's say that paper want to launch an agile program and they granting you an interview. They say, okay, look, we want to be able to implement a payment system where our client can be able to have competitive bank card like other banks, right? For those who use paper do have bank card. They can issue you a bank card, especially if you're using paper for your business. But then the bank card is a bit limited. You get some cash back, but then it doesn't have like this contactless payment. Let's say that paper want to implement contactless payment, and they bringing you in. They say, look, we want to get this as fast as possible. We want to be able to build the futures in which the client can start using, our customer can start using it immediately. But then we don't know exactly how to go about this. So now, if they bring that to you, let's assume two levels. They bring that back to you, and you say, okay, you know what? If we need to get this out in within the next 6 months, we are going to need about 7 different teams to work on that. All right. Why are we going to need about 7 different teams, despite the fact that we're just working on one functionality, which is to enable clients to be able to pay without actually slotting their card in the machine? They can pay just by a tap. You realize that for we to implement that function that enable clients to pay without actually putting their chip in the machine, we need what? We need a team that's going to work on sensors, because that controller uses a sensor between the machine and also the card to be able to complete that transaction. Now, we need people that will build the portal that's going to host the data for both the client or the admin, in order to enable that, so that the admin, for instance, you can call paper and say, you know what, I did a transaction at this particular time and they overcharged me in my card, right? Now you can log in and you can see that transaction. And then if someone with an admin power log in, that person will be able to see more detailedly what happened and be able to also have a power to override that. So I'm just listing some of the possible future, and that is going to need a separate team to work on, right? So we're going to need a team to work on the sensors application. We're going to need a team to work on that portal. Maybe we're going to need a team to do mobile integration for both iOS and Android, right? So those are already 3 different teams. Now, we might also need a data team, a full data team, and that full data team is just to ensure that we can be able to leverage how the data is coming in and out, how many people are using that function, and how we can leverage that information to help management, right, or to help policy. Now, those are how many teams? We're already talking about 4 teams. Now, we can also have another team, and that team is working on automation. Now, it's going to be a lot of automation to what happened if a transaction is declined, what happened for those who have set their account to accept overdraft, what are the automated messages that are going to send out. So it's possible that we might be working on adding one functionality and we have multiple teams working. Why? Because paper is an enterprise company, right? It's not just for one person. It's not just a small company. A lot of people across the world use paper. We also might just have an API team, because we need to configure the API to be able to plug into different systems of different countries, or even within the United States. We'll see that all the 50 states have their own taxation laws, right? For any, even within the same state, you realize that if you live in a particular zip code, your taxes are different. So the API team will need to configure how the system connect to all of this taxation system. So we see that just for one functionality, it's a whole big investment. And that's why sometimes we might be saying, oh, why does the company not have this functionality? But if they want to implement that, it's definitely costing them hundreds and millions of dollars. Now, and this also kind of reflecting back to those who are interviewing. And one of the big mistakes I often see for those who are interviewing and integrating maybe companies they work for as Scrum Master is that they don't take the time to even evaluate, does this company have the capacity to implement Agile or Scrum? Right? Scrum or Agile is a very expensive approach to implement if you want to implement it fully. Okay, now when we have that idea in the initial state, I want to skip the portfolio. Let's assume that leadership has already taken up that decision for us to start implementing. So what is going to happen when leadership take that decision is that we are going to need to create an idea of what we call the roadmap. So the roadmap will be created based on what? The different functionality that we need within that system. Now, I'm using my Miro bot. We are on Miro, right? Miro, M-I-R-O, not Miro. It's M-I-R-O, Miro bot. And if you look right to my top, let me see that. Give me a second. Okay, so if you look right to where my cursor is right here, you realize that if I'm a program manager or if I'm the registration engineer managing this board for my PI planning, or if I'm a program manager and need to invite my other product owners to the board so that they know exactly what their team is working on, I can share this link. I can share this link for people to come in and participate, right? You see right here, I can invite team and and they can edit, right? I can also invite you and not give you the right to edit. You can see what is there, but you don't have the right to edit, right? So I'm going to copy this link and put in the chat box. You can see it, but you don't have the right to edit, right? So that you will not disrupt what I'm doing. Okay, so I put this link on the chat box. For those who want to come in, I think you need to have a Miro account, which is just create. It's simple, it's free for everybody. So if you do that, you'll be able to join the bot. And when you join the bot, I can actually see that you are part of the bot. So I already see NS is part of the bot. And you can see NS is moving, right? The cursor is moving on the board. So everyone, it's like a space where everyone can work and we can all plan together. So that's the value for Miro bot. Now, for the Miro bot, let me show you also something. I'm just going to share another tab for the Miro. If I go here, for the Miro bot, we can use Miro for our retrospective. There's so many template, or you can create your own template, right? So right here, I can look at my retro bot. So if I create a retro bot right here, I can invite everyone to join. So you see on my retro bot right here, this means I can invite team members to write on what helped us to move forward. So each member can be able to just pull a card in here and do what? And write. So we realize that all the different parts, if you're writing in here, use this color. If you're writing in here, use this color. So how do we take card? I can take this card and I can be able to pull this color. You see right here? If I want to write something here, I need to use the red color. So the menu on the left help us to be able to customize on what we need to. So I can pull up here, right here, you see? So Miro enable everyone to participate. But then you see, if we go back to our program bot, I see people that have joined, but they don't have the right to edit. So they cannot click on any stuff, right? If I've given them the right to edit, you realize that they can actually move stuff around. They can actually write every stuff there. But you also realize that you can get on the Miro bot and you don't see anything, because if I zoom down, you realize that it's a very big whiteboard. If I zoom to the left or zoom to the right or zoom right up, you see that my screen is very blank, right? So many people can walk in the space of the Miro bot and you will not be able to even see where the others are. Okay. So if we can do that, I can proceed with my training. Okay. Let me proceed. Right here, let's look at what happened right here. Right here is going to be what? The program backlog. The program backlog holds the different features we're going to be working on. Remember, we want to work on contactless payment, right? Now, if I start putting up my different features I want my team to work on, let's say that I'm using the orange color to present my features, I can be able to reduce this size. I can be able to stretch it to the left, right? So you can actually edit this. Now I can write in here, my first feature is what? Sensor integration. Sensor integration. All right, that's the first feature which it's in our program board. Now I have a team. Let's say that, okay, I'm going to share later how this is going to happen. Now I come in here, I have another team, and that team is working on API. API integration, right? I want to put it at a very high level so that we can go a bit faster. We can still break this down into smaller item, but let me keep it at the higher level so that we can do this. Now, okay. Now see what happened. You can also map on your program board if you have dependency, but I definitely don't want to map dependency. I want to map dependency in the board. Okay, I can come in here. I also come on the iOS integration. All right, so I have iOS integration. I can also come here and I have, let's say, Android integration. I can also come in here and I have another feature like I can have UI UX. I can have support automation. Now, these are the different features which we have in our backlog, right? And let's assume that each of these features can take us several months to be completed. Okay. Now, let's say that sensor integration, we've been able to estimate at the program level and say that sensor integration is going to be 400 story point, right? Let me use a different color to integrate the story point. Now, let's say that I've been able to come in here and say, okay, sensor integration is going to be 400 story point. Let me see if I can feed this in. All right, it's a bit small because it's, but if you zoom a bit closer, you see right here, I can put my sensor integration. Let's say it's going to be 400 story point. I can simply just copy this style and duplicate it on the board. Or let me just pick a different one. I can come here and I can say API is going to be, let's say, 260 story point, right? I can come in here and I say, now this is not a decision of one person, please. I'm just giving you an example how they're able to how we're able to sort out the program board and prioritize the program board. I can come in here and say that UI UX will be 800 story point. I can come in here after we've estimated. I can say support and automation will be somewhere 1000 story point. Now, this is a reason why we understand why capacity is very important when we are estimating, when we're talking about Scrum work. Capacity is very important because the work that's at the level of the program, they already have an idea of what it should take. And this is why in most of the Scrum interview question, Scrum interview, you're going to have a lot of question on performance. How do you ensure that they meet their target? Now, those are the level of program. They are interviewing you. They are conscious of the fact that they have a timeline to deliver. So based on this, they are going to, now, if you look at let's say UI UX, right? This is where we make a decision on how many people are going to be part of the team. So let's say you can have a team of 10, right? Implementing this, given that we want to complete this just within one PI. We'll put up a contract that gives, let's say, about 4 months or 6 months contract, right? For many UI UX. So because we want them to come in and complete this work on time. So you realize that within that period, because we need to complete this, we need to bring in these people. And this also kind of explains why when you say your contract has ended, you should understand that your contract has ended. Maybe they hire you as a Scrum Master specifically for the UI UX team, and then their own part work, the work is done. It doesn't mean that the project has closed completely. So now, if this is UI UX, we want to start building. Let's say the UI UX is team A, right? Now, we cannot assign this work to team A all at once because let's say that they have a capacity of about 40 and we are running PI planning that is going to be, let's say, 6 iteration, right? Now, 6 iteration is going to be what? 40 times 6. And 40 times 6 is going to give us what? 240. So you realize that they can only complete 240 story point within, it's not going to be up to that. It's going to be 200 because in PI, we don't calculate the last iteration. But let's say that within the next 3 months, they can complete averagely about 260. And then we're estimating that if they can complete about 260, or let's say 200 for every quarter, then we expect that 800 story points should be done in how many quarters? 4 quarters. So now we can design a term of contract for the UI UX for 1 year. Now, just imagine if within that 1 year, you are not able to support your team to deliver this result, and there's still a lot of carryover, right? So that we have performance issue. Now, when it comes to year, this need to be broken down, right? So UI UX can be broken down into UI UX sensor, which means that we need to design the way the sensors flow is going to be. We need to design how the API construction will be. We need to design how all this. So UI UX, the one that kind of design how we want user experience. So you can come in they can come here and they assign that, all right, at this point, we want to implement, let's go on sub-stories. Yeah, we want you within this first iteration, the first 2 weeks, we want the team to complete, let's say that UI, UX, and research, R&D. Okay, so that's the only thing we want them to do. Now we want team B to also start. Let's say team B is working on API. Team B should start on infrastructure research, R&D, right? We're assuming that we're within our first phase ever. Now we want, let's say team C, or let's say there's a team that will handle the Android. And then let's say that this team is going to be team C. I just want to show how different teams can collaborate. Also bring it down. Let's put this Android R&D, right? Let's just put a couple of words here just to assume that everyone else is taking something. Now let's say Team D. Team D, it's going to work on the support automation. Support automation. Okay, perfect. Now, within these sub features, they are also, we can still break it down further into other stuff. Now, Team B come here and say, all right, if we want to implement this, we can still further break this down into other smaller features or into other bigger user story. And they come in here and say, okay, we've been given the task to do the UI UX R&D. So we see that we can do R&D marketing here, for instance, and then we can move ahead and go to break down this and do R&D R&D admin, right? They want to design the user interface for marketing. They want to design the user interface for admin. They want to design R&D, let's say business. They want to design the R&D for business. So you realize that although they were given the task to just do research on R&D, now they're breaking it down into different components. Now, those that are working on infrastructure, we say, okay, now our infrastructure is going to be correlated with, let's say, what the UI UX team is going to present to us. Then we can now see what type of APIs we're going to build to connect all of these different aspects. And they say, you know what? We cannot start building until all of this is done. If so, in that case, you realize that the API integration team cannot start their work until all of this baseline is done. Now, at this level, we say that what? All of this is dependent on this. So this is dependent on this. I want to assume that one is going to lead to the other. Okay, let me assume that all of these one are independent, but they're kind of related, because for them to be able to say that they're going to do marketing in the first spring or first iteration, do admin the second, we need to already prioritize, right? So we want to assume that we're completely prioritizing our backlog. Now, let's assume that for us to start this, we need to complete this. And for us to start the other one, we need to complete this. Now, for major dependency, what happened? We indicate them, we write, because we want to pay attention. We want to pay attention to them. We can actually increase the boldness of the line. So what I'm trying to do here is I'll show you what happened when decisions are happening up there and how we're able to track that. Now, you realize that since Team B cannot start their work, what is going to happen? Management need to find work that they're going to be implementing within this period while waiting for this. If not, the way that work is planned at the program level determine on how the hiring process will kick in. So we can only hire the infrastructure team to start by next month. So that is how we're able to program interviews and also program ahead. Now, let's say that this one, Android research can start immediately when we complete this one. So this team will be able to start their work. It's dependent in if this one finish, they can already start configuring what's going to happen after this one. Right. Now, let's say that at this time, support R&D is also going to be dependent on support to get their own kick started. Now you realize that all of this is also going to happen. Now, let's also say that, for instance, infrared is also going to leverage information from support and from Android research. Now, you're going to see that what is also going to happen with that be that this can only be done. So you see that this team is highly dependent on this other three team to start their work. So if you were a Scrum Master at this point, let's just assume that you came in at this point and your team is not having enough work. You've been waiting and waiting and waiting. You need to kind of have that understanding that what is the source of your work? Is your team, or is the work that your team want to do, is it dependent on other program or not? So now at the level of program, you might just see the product owner say, okay, team, this week we're working on UI UX marketing. And the product owner is going to bring this and align on your backlog. If you work in a Scrum team, like, okay, you might not really understand why they're saying so. They're saying so because there's a program, but even if this wasn't a safe, this is designed in a safe environment. Even if this wasn't a safe environment and there are multiple teams working, this bot is used to manage dependency. Now, at this level, what happened? The team need to understand when we plan at the level of programming, we need to look at what are the possible risks that could stop us, right? Now, risks, now we can start already seeing risks even without going anywhere. See right here, it's a possible very high risk that we cannot start building infrared if all of these teams are not efficient. So now, how are we going to ensure that all of these teams are effective? So we need to do a backward check to ensure, do they have the potential to be effective? And that's why you can see they're bringing in a Scrum Master on board. After 3 months, if they're not effective, they do what? They fire them. Why are they firing them? Because they were expecting them to deliver this milestone. Now, if they continue to keep them, this is costing the organization hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're not able to coordinate their team to deliver this effectively. So what happened when you are a release-trained engineer? When all of this bot is established, now you need to start checking with all the different Scrum Master to, right, let's see, management is on your bot to say that, okay, look, we're having a major milestone here to kickstart with our infrastructure by the third iteration or by the fourth iteration. Now, what is going on at the level of the team? So the release trained engineer need to coordinate, and this is what happened at the Scrum of Scrum, with all of this team today. Everything going okay? What are the impediments? Have you completed this in one? Are them carry over? So he supervises all of this to ensure that everything is planned and is released as planned. If it's not released, then he is able to manage all the risks that have been jotted here and look at how management can help push down the team to deliver effectively. So this is what happened at the level of the program bot, right? And now I know many of us, we are used to now the what, our Scrum bot. So when all of this happen and we come now to our Scrum bot, what are we seeing at the level of our Scrum bot? We are seeing a backlog with so many items in here, and we see like, oh, we have a lot of work here. And we are focusing on doing what? On prioritizing this. But if we don't have an idea that this is being prioritized based on pressure that is coming in from someone that's having an eye on this, and that is why sometimes management can come and say, you know what, let's put this to team B, and so that they can finish. And then, oh, let's put this to, we realize that team A is very effective. Now, this is not a major stuff. Let's put this work down to this team and move this to this team so that we can get effectiveness, right? And now they come at the middle of the sprint and said, okay, team, new requirement. we want you to shift and start working on this. Now, you, the Scrum Master, need to understand why is there the shift. If not, you get very frustrated with what is happening. So some of these major decisions, although Scrum is going to tell you that, you know what, changes at the level of changes is not, otherwise, changes are not recommended when we launch a sprint. That's true. But in most of the cases, what happened? When we need to do changes, we need to do changes. And Scrum say, yo, look, even at the last minute, we can accept changes, right? So this is very, very, very important. Now, what we kind of work on, we're assuming that this is our first sprint to complete the work, right? We realize that it's 4 days for us to complete the work. We still have a lot of items that are here. And we are expecting that by the end of these 4 weeks, we must have completed everything here about market and research. And you come to your board and you see like, oh, many stuff, they see we have 4 days. So this is more like somewhere towards after the middle of the week. One of the things you do right here is that when you do your daily stand-up, sometime close to year, don't only ask people to give update. Now, what I always recommend here is that, okay, look, when you get team, we're going to do our update a bit different today. So when you give your update, I want you to give us an idea what is going to stop us not from completing this issue by the end of the month. So if I see this right here, and this is assigned to me, I was like, okay, Francis, I see an item on this. So is there anything that is, I will not ask you to give update. Now, remember, I'm asking you, is there anything that can hold us back, not from completing this? Because if I ask you what's your update, right? What are you going to say? Oh, I'm still working on this. When I finish this, I'm going to pick up this. But if I ask, oh, is there anything that will make us not to complete all the send requests that is going to help us create our home button? It's like, I'm still working to generate the APIs that are linked to the menu. Immediately this is done, then I can kick this in. And like, okay, how much effort do you think that you're going to still need here? So it gives me a more clearer idea on why this has not been taken and then how to put that. So as a Scrum Master, what I'm going to do is that I can come in here and I put my notes. I come in here and I put my comment, waiting for menu API to be completed. Now, I put my comment in here and I save my comment, right? Now, remember, the day I put my comment is showing in here. When your manager comes to your board, especially those who understand what Scrum, they're not just looking for, they're looking for your presence. How can you indicate your presence that you actually have this and this? So when your team do their daily stand-up at some time and leave, don't just like, okay, it's 6 minutes, time to go relax. No, make sure that you're following exactly what they're saying. And if there's something that you need to take a note, put a note there. How does this note actually help? This note actually help because if the team that's working on that, they're going to see that you put a comment. And because they put a comment, they know that what, oh, you mark already what they say. So they cannot come tomorrow and give you that same excuse, right? So let's assume that this point, we have this item on ready for acceptance, or let's say we actually move one to done. And let's say the person that was working on this one put up this one. We realize that, okay, this is good timing for us to work on this. Or let's assume that one of our developer, we have 4 days to go and their story is already ready for acceptance and they don't have work to do. What happened at this point? Now, you can discuss with them. It can be a meet after. You can discuss with them. First of all, you ask if there is anybody that need help, right? And if the person that doesn't have work can support them, you want to encourage them to work with the other people to push it ahead. That's what we talk about pair programming. This happens when in the middle, if one of your developers is fast enough to finish your work, they can step back and help. While they're helping, there's cross-learning going on. But if for any reason, this was like, you know what, I think it's just going to take me a couple of days, Now they can go in, you can go into the backlog, right? You go into your backlog and you see if there's something they can already start working on. Now, if they can work on something and they say, oh, no, you know what? Let's say we look at this and you can start working on this and we realize that this is just going to be a two-story pointer and we're done. It's like, okay, I think I can complete this before tomorrow and send it out for testing. Now, we can pull this to the current sprint if they are sure that, they're going to finish that. Now, if they say, oh, this is going to take us long, I'm not sure I'm going to finish it before this. What is going to happen? We can estimate it and we'll let them start working on it while it's still on the backlog so that when we pull it up to their sprint, it's going to be an additional credit for them. But it's a bit tricky. You need to understand your team to do that. But these are possibilities I'm giving you here. So let's assume that we're pulling it here. Before you pull something or add something, it always gives you a warning. Sprint scope will be affected by the action. Will be moved from backlog into sprint. Do you see? So in case you do it by mistakenly, there's always a prompt. So sometimes I wonder why someone said, oh, I deleted it by mistakenly. That means you were not taking time to read. Because most of the prompt on your board will always give you a second warning. Now we confirm. We see the difference. Now let's see if we have a report at the back end and what is happening to the report. Let's look at our bend down chart. Are we seeing what is happening? We started this sprint with how many story points? We started the sprint with
29.
Okay, we started the sprint with what? About ERI chair, 29 story point and 7 issues. We've completed some and we've completed others as well. But then there is a forward and back movement here because we completed one and we added another story point. So this is expecting that we should have, you see what's happening? It's expecting that. So we are actually not really performing as it should be, but we're kind of getting close. Now, let me go back to my project and complete a couple of other stories, and let's see how this is going to affect our sprint. Okay, I complete another story point. I go back to my report. This is how you monitor with the bend down chart, right? I go back to my report. This doesn't move. I'm just gonna refresh the backlog and see. Okay, you see that we've completed another 5 story point, right? But whoa, it still shows that we are not. But then in most of the cases, you don't have to bother so much about this line. What you want to pay very close attention is that you finish, if you can finish at least 80% before this last day, you're going to be on good shit. Right. So this is exactly what is going to happen at from program to how it affect what, and that's what they're asking, what happened if at the middle of the spring? So we already see why at the middle of the spring, some certain things might happen, right? It's not just because they're taking the decision, it's because it's a program, but they're monitoring, they're seeing if it's aligned to what we want to accomplish, and then we're looking at how we're completing the work. All right. Any question? If you have a question, just put your hand up and then let's see. Any question on this? The question should be on what we have illustrated. Then we're going to go to generic question very soon. Yes. So let's go ahead.
Okay, on meeting now. All right, I just wanted to find out how transparent is this program board to the rest of the teams in the organization. So is it like it's only the Scrum Master who can have access to this board? Because if the board is transparent to everybody, then there is no point the Scrum Master will complain that he doesn't know what is going on, let alone being fired because he didn't understand those dependencies and so on.
Unfortunately, most of the cases, the Scrum Master doesn't have access to this bot. Most of the times, just the PO might have access to the bot. And in most of the cases, managers are even very lazy to put up this bot. So they just imagine they have their little node and maybe somewhere they just pull stuff and then they realize that, oh, this is due. So most organizations that practice safe, they should also give Scrum Masters and product owner access to their board, but unfortunately, it's not the case. Most of the team only know what they're working during the PI planning, and after that, they deal with that. So they don't really have an overview. And that's why, as a Scrum Master, one of the things you ask is that you ask for what? You ask for the roadmap. The product roadmap gives you an idea where exactly we are and what is expected of us. Edie, go ahead.
So hi, Dr. Francis. So initially you mentioned something about back testing, backward testing. How do you do that testing? That's question one. And question two, I'm wondering, like, why would a Scrum Master not have access to this? Is this not part of what they do during PI, where he is supposed to be the person that facilitates the team's interaction with other Scrum Masters to track dependencies?
Okay, I'm not sure about backward testing. We can talk about that later, but at this point of the program, but we definitely will not be dealing with testing. We might have a testing team. Now, the concept of backward testing is not related to this, but it's an independent one on its own, which I probably might talk a bit about that later. Now, the reason why the Scrum Master is supposed to have access. I'm not saying that the Scrum Master will not have access, but we're talking about reality, right? Okay. Kosami, do you have access to the program bot in your organization? I know your organization is safe.
No, I really do not, Doc. What happens is that these guys just push their stories to my backlog. And then even though they do that, I can't really go ahead to prioritize with my team. I still need to have at least one person from the business to tell me which feature is going in first for that sprint and which one we can carry forward to the next sprint. Then only thing we can then prioritize. Actually, they tell me which of this one is number one, which means high priority, two, my mean, low, medium, and so on. So business tells me what is prioritized. I don't even do that. Then we just jump on them and start work.
Yeah. So you see, he doesn't have access.
Yeah, I don't.
What to do. And do you work in a Scrum environment? Do you have access to your bot?
No, we don't. We're not safe.
No, even with Scrum, you have a program bot.
No, I don't. I've never seen that thing before.
Okay, that's just to tell you that Scrum Masters are supposed to have access to a bot where they can see how items are prioritized to help them be effective. But not that they don't want to give it, right? It so happened that they're too lazy to do that. And it also happened that most of these come up like impromptu. Now, I used to chase my manager at the eve of what they call backlog refinement or planning, just to be like, can you give us what we are working on? And it's like, okay, can we move the planning to tomorrow? I'll be available. And then when he comes, like, okay, let me see what's working on. Can we get this person on board? Can we get this person on board? Now, just to tell you, it's supposed to be organized. We're supposed to have access. So most of the cases, and that is why if you don't really understand the challenges that you might go through while you get at work, you might get very frustrated, right? But if you understand that access to these things can help you, you'll be able to ask the right questions and get the right answer.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. I'm Catherine.
One. My question is in that same line. Are there any guidelines as to work being added in the middle of the sprint? Should there be guidelines so that at least that behavior is not exaggerated and frustrate the sprint? And one other question I also want to ask as a follow-up is why it's a team effort. Why should the Scrum Master be the scapegoat? Why should the Scrum Master be the only one to be fired if the team doesn't deliver?
Good question. Now, there's a process, right? And the process is on prioritizing the backlog and having planning your sprint to spanning your sprint to sprint deep. So if we could maintain that, then it's going to avoid us bringing work impromptu. Now, in so many cases, because products are built very spontaneously, it might so happen that immediately we have an idea we want to start and every other thing follow. So in that case, we might not really have that all the futures ahead of time, right? But it also attributed to the fact that sometimes the processes are not aligned. I've spoken with several managers. I spoke with a team from USSA, and they said, you know what, we're in PI 17, but we still don't understand how to align our work. And I asked them, what's going on? And the lady said, sometime business pull this in and pull that out the next second, and pull this in and pull that out the next second. And sometimes it get very frustrating. We want to find a way to align it. So at times it's beyond just the right thing, right? So it might go beyond what you expected. Now, why is it not the responsibility for the whole team? You are the coach, right? And you, as a coach, you protect your team and you take their bullet. Now, they're expecting you to manage and monitor it and to be able to escalate. So the reason that if you're only being fired if you don't understand the process and do the necessary follow-up to show them where their gaps are coming up. So it doesn't matter even if your team is not delivering and you're able to showcase to management. These are the lapses, and if we feed this up, the team will actually perform well. There's no way they will fire you, right? So it's not that they just enjoy firing. It's also because you don't understand what is happening, so you don't have the right information to make a decision. All right, Ashley, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, okay, as a Scrum Master, since we don't have access to the board, for example, say during an interview, if an interviewer asks you what is your UI UX portfolio, what do you say? You tell him that you don't have access to the board, or that's not your responsibility? I don't know.
Okay. All right.
She's thinking out of the box.
UI UX portfolio doesn't have anything to do with the board. And also, as a Scrum Master, it's not that you don't have access or it's not that you're denied access. It just so happened that your organization is not structured, or they don't even understand that you have access to it, right? So it's not like you deliberately are withheld access. Now, when they talk about UI UX portfolio, whenever you hear the word portfolio, is more on at the level of decision making.
Okay.
What they want to understand, like what are the main focus? What are you focusing on when you're looking at UI UX is about what? User interface and user experience. So what are the bigger features which your team is working on based on the user interface and user experience? For instance, I want to use the case of we're building this application for paper. So our user interface and user experience is going to design in such a way that it's going to save the time of the client. And so there are limited steps they need to validate. For instance, if I flash my card, it's not going to ask me to put a pin. So I need to design a user interface which is a one-hop tap. It's a one-hop tap, Right. Now, based on maybe fraud, you might have a user interface and user experience that if they indicate fraud, it push a code. So UI UX, most of they don't write code. They more or less look at the experience, design the experience. We're using Miro bot now. The way it is being structured, this is the work of the UI UX on how we can easily appreciate that. When they design how it's going to look, then the front end developer now, the back end developer will build the code to reflect what the UI UX actually foresaw. Then the front end now will bring it to life.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just thank you.
I think you have another question.
Okay. Let me go back to the previous conversation. Now, when I look at what they just did here, that's a lot of work and very important work because there are a lot of determinant factors determining who has to be hired at a particular time for what length of time and so on. Yeah. And given the importance of this exercise here, I would assume that at least the Scrum Master who is at the level of implementation should be quite involved. Otherwise, he may get confused at some point, and if they keep this away from him, I think they're just setting him up for failure. That's what I'm thinking.
That's right. I wish
to an extent, right to an extent, Doc. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I feel is management really want to hold these features close to their chest because there is always change of requirement that's going to come in at every step of the way. So they feel that if they push all these things to the teams or the Scrum Master at the go, they might just start going at kind of implementing them. But then when the change comes, it will be difficult to fit in. So they want to give you these features depending on the business need. So depending on the priority at every given point in time. That's why they want to hold it. Like back to the question of Catherine, there's no specific way to say bringing change in the middle of the sprint. Once need arises, they are bringing in the change. They're just falling on you and telling you, look, this is what is going to happen. Like, I'm 3 days to the end of my sprint. Since yesterday, these guys have been on my neck. They had given me a defect. That defect had been on my backlog for, I think, 4 weeks. They didn't look at it to kind of bring up new requirements. Now I picked up that defect to work on this sprint. They scheduled 4 meetings last week concerning that defect. And I'm asking myself, this thing has been lying here for 4 different weeks, and you guys didn't schedule a meeting. We've made our capacity planning, we've made provision to pick this thing and start working on. We've worked, and on today we have 3 days to the end of sprint. And this evening they came and they were bringing up change in a defect, So, but in this case, like Doc says, you have to protect your team. I'm standing my grounds. We are going to deliver what we committed to at the start of the sprint. We are just 3 days to the end of the sprint. We are not taking no additional requirement. If there's anything which is so pressing, then they have to really bring it up in the next sprint. So they bring their change when they need it done. There's no mechanism. There's no particular way. And when they come, they have to be on your neck. And sometimes, I don't know, they are not really agile, right? So you need to start training them, let them know this is not how agile works. And you try to do a negotiation. If you succeed, then you succeed. If you fail, then you just have to manage it that way.
That is correct. All right. Adia, ask your question.
Okay, Doc, thank you so much. On Sunday during one of our sessions, one of our teammates had an interview question and he asked that question, but we were not able to come up with an answer. The question was, what release modules have you used and how was the sprint cadence arranged?
Okay. I'll answer the second part. When we talk about the sprint cadence, is do you run a 2-week sprint, a 1-week sprint, and that. Now, when you talk about release model, as a Scrum Master, what you should focus on? Do you guys actually have do you release every 3 weeks at the end of every sprint, every quarter? How were your releases scheduled? So that is something which you can pre-plan, but you can still work in an environment where they don't do releases or you're not in charge of releases. There's a separate team in charge of releases, right? But every Scrum Master should basically understand that when we talk about releases, is based on what? It's based on our program board. We are expecting this to go out by this. So this gives us an idea on how we have scheduled these releases, right? So releases are more or less planned at the program level. And the reason why they sometimes put a lot of pressure on you is because they're expecting that to go out by next release. Now, you might have a release manager or someone that managing your releases. I think in some environment, they can train Scrum Masters to manage your releases. And they might train them on how they get it to their client. How they get it to your client is also based on what features they're working on, what kind of code they're building, and how they're going to, what pipeline they're using to deliver it to their clients. So all of that are going to be taken into consideration. I'm going to stick on the cadence and how frequently it was released, but based on you going to the model, I'll basically say that there's a separate team that handle releases. Unfortunately, I wasn't really like very close or very involved in the release processes, apart from just looking at the planning and ensuring that I monitor the plan and make sure all stories that are tagged to the releases are delivered on time. I'm going to talk a bit about tagging story to releases, which can be the job of the Scrum Master, only if your management want you to be involved. If not, that's not going to be your concern. In most of the cases, except you work in a safe environment where releases are taken very important based on the PI cadence, you might not even interact so much in it. All right, Mr. Bernice, then I'm going to take Udi.
Thank you very much, Doc. My question, can we go to the Jira board, the bond and chat?
Okay, I guess everyone is seeing how I'm going to this. You need to understand your Jira interface very well. You go to report and then I go to my yes.
Yeah, my question is this: is it because of the way the project we are doing is configured? That's why we're having this graph like this, or because I'm seeing is it the actual line and then the way the thing is bonding like a step? I thought it's supposed to be a graph going down gradually.
Okay, very important question. How will you read a bend down chart? Now, it's not okay. It shows you, right, when you start a sprint, day one. You see, if I take my cursor here, you're saying how many story points did we start with?
29.
How many stories? There were 7 issues.
7 issues. Yeah.
Between this was February interval of 2 days. This was February 1st, right? Between February 1st and this period when I completed and February 4th, no story was completed. So this was a period where no work was completed. Now, the bend down chart only show you the story that are completed on the done column. It's not that as the spring is going, the chart is going down. And that is why, if for any reason you don't move work to done until the last day of the spring, you're going to have a straight line all the way to the last day. Then it's going to fall down like this. This one only show you what is expected, which means that we're expecting that, which is slice down our stories to smaller story points in such a way that after spring one, we complete a story. Remember, if the next day we'll have completed a story, what will happen? It will drop down. The next day we complete this one, it will drop down. The next day we'll complete. You realize that it's going to be around this line. But because we have longer period where we are just building and no story is moved to done, we have longer, what we call what? Is it, we have longer cycle time. This cycle time or lead time? One of them.
Cycle.
Yes. Okay.
And some of that also include non-working days.
Yeah, also include non-working day. You see, like somewhere here was a weekend, right here. So also non-working days. So you don't expect it to just follow this one gradually.
So this is to Coach Simon. I like to, like, when you said your sprint is 2 days to the end and they just give you a work to do, isn't it possible to have